We're back, Dynasty waiver wire for week 2. As always, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you like Dynasty content. And let's just jump right into it. It's the Dynasty waiver wire show. Starting off with the quarterback position, and this is an obvious one. Jake Browning, if he's not already rostered, he needs to 100% be rostered. Joe Burrow may miss the entire season. Who knows? I mean, he's not back till December. Jake Browning is going to be the quarterback for this team in the foreseeable future. And if you guys remember, Jake Browning has a little bit of experience under his belt. He came in and started for Burrow the last 7 weeks or so of the 2023 season. He started the last 7 games of the 2023 season. His 17-game pace was 4,500 yards and 27 touchdowns. Now, he also was on pace for 17 interceptions because he was throwing an interception a game. But that doesn't really matter for fantasy too much because generally in fantasy, we don't get penalized a lot for interception. So 100% Drake Browning. This is obvious. Need to go out and grab him. Another quarterback, though, is Zach Wilson. I still think, just like I thought with Mac Jones and a lot of these backup quarterbacks, Zach Wilson needs to be rostered. If something happens to Tua, he is probably going to be the starter. He's the QB2 right now for the Dolphins. And I think that, there's a chance that Zach Wilson, we've seen kind of the resurgence now. We've seen Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones. When you get the right coaches and the right weapons around these players that kind of busted, these talented players that were busts, they seem to at least turn it around just a little bit. So, if something happens to Tua, Zach Wilson's going to take over. I don't think it will be Quinn Ewers. And who knows what he does with those weapons in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Achane in the backfield. So I think that Zach Wilson 100% needs to be rostered. Into the running backs here, Chris Brooks. Chris Brooks is, maybe people don't know this, but he is basically the RB2 for your Green Bay Packers. I think a lot of people would first go to Emmanuel Wilson, and you see that with the rankings and keep trade cut. Emmanuel Wilson is like 20 spots higher than Chris Brooks. But when you go and look at the box scores, now Josh Jacobs is the bell cow. He is 100% dominating the backfield. But Chris Brooks is kind of the next in line. He's playing about 20% of the snaps. Emmanuel Wilson is under 10% of the snaps. So this team seems to trust Chris Brooks more as the primary backup. Now, of course, if Josh Jacobs does get hurt, that probably means that this is going to be a split backfield or they bring someone in or something. But you would assume that Chris Brooks is going to be first in line to take an expanded role, and so I would 100% be going out there and grabbing Chris Brooks if you could. Isaiah Davis, keep trade cut RB79, so he's pretty high up there, pretty highly rostered, I would assume. I still think he's a pretty talented running back. Now the Jets aren't really using him that much. It's mostly Breece Hall and then it's Braylon Allen. Again, if something happens to Breece Hall, like we saw it last year, probably means that this is more of a split backfield than anything. That being said, everyone's excited about Braylon Allen, likes Braylon Allen. Isaiah Davis last week played just as many snaps as Braylon Allen. So, I truly do think that this would be a split backfield with the off chance that Isaiah Davis is just better than Braylon Allen and he's out there for free. Whereas for Braylon Allen, it feels like you have to go out and pay, a third-round pick or a couple third-round picks to get him. Whereas Isaiah Davis is free. He's probably on your waiver wire. And if something happens to Breece Hall, he's going to increase in value. A guy that's actually producing without an injury is Tyler Beatty or Bidet. I keep seeing both different pronunciations on Pro Football Reference. I see Beatty, so I'm going to go with Tyler Beatty. Now, is he producing for fantasy football? No, but he's out there and he's playing, and that's the kind of the frustrating part when it comes to guys like RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. But Tyler Beatty is playing he's averaging 20% of the snaps, and so he kind of has his role in this offense, which seems to be the pass catching running back for your Denver Broncos. He has 8 targets and 4 catches in the first 2 games of the season. So it's frustrating. This is much more for deeper leagues. This is much more for PPR leagues. But, if one of these other 2 guys get hurt in RJ Harvey or J.K. Dobbins, do we see an even more expanded role? And by the way, Tyler Beatty, good yards per reception to start the season. Now he's only caught 4 passes, so very small sample size, but averaging 8.8 yards per reception this year. So that's really good. Khalil Mullings is a guy I really like to stash. Now, we haven't really been able to see much of Khalil Mullings. I thought maybe we'd see a little bit with Tajay Spears out, but if you don't know, Khalil Mullings is a 6th-round pick drafted to the Titans. Hasn't gotten a carry or anything yet this year, but he's a big guy. He's 6'2", 230, former linebacker. Tajay Spears is going to miss a little bit more time. Do they try and get Mullings a little bit involved if something happens to Pollard, who's the primary backup? I mean, right now for the Tennessee Titans, you have Tony Pollard, you have Tajay Spears, who's going to miss at least a couple more games, and then Julius Chestnut. So Khalil Mullings is dealing with his own injury, but that being said, very good chance if Pollard gets hurt that you're going to see a lot more of an expanded role of Khalil Mullings. And then Xavier Scott. This is an intriguing one because we have an injury of Aaron Jones. That Aaron Jones is probably going to miss some time here. Xavier Scott is the number 2. If Aaron Jones misses time, Xavier Scott is kind of the number 2 running back on this team because Ty Chandler is on IR. I don't know exactly when Ty Chandler got put on IR, but Xavier Scott has been in the league for a couple of years, but he's only really been on like practice squads. He's on the active roster now. He was kind of impressive during preseason. He was impressing people during preseason, played at smaller schools, UConn and Maine. But Xavier Scott is kind of the RB2 for this team. Who knows? Do they give him 20, 25% of the snaps this coming week if Aaron Jones misses? Do they have a role for him, or is it all going to be Jordan Mason? Either way, he needs to, I think, be rostered with Chandler on IR and Aaron Jones potentially going to miss some time with a hamstring injury, I believe it is, and he's an older running back. You need to be rostering every RB2 on every single team, and that could be Xavier Scott right now. Rasheen Ali, key trade cut 96. He's just a mainstay here. If you guys watched these videos last week or last year, Rasheen Ali was on this video all the time. And again, my logic is just if something happens to Derrick Henry, I feel like Rasheen Ali is the candidate to take over the early down work. Whereas Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill will kind of have their role. Rasheen Ali will kind of take over that early downs work. So, but strictly just a handcuff, nothing you can potentially use or anything like that. So then we have Casey Washington. Again, another mainstay last year of the Dynasty waiver wire show, Casey Washington. We saw him actually play quite a bit this last for week 1 when Darnell Mooney was out. He replaced Darnell Mooney. He was playing the Darnell Mooney role, which is intriguing, and at least we know that, right? It's kind of a handcuff wide receiver here. He had 6 targets, 3 catches in that first week. Obviously didn't do anything last week with Mooney back, but if Mooney does get injured, we know who his replacement is, and we know that this guy's going to play 90+% of the snaps because that's what he did. That's what he did in week 1. So, just keep an eye on him. I think he's talented. Obviously needed a couple years or a year or 2 to kind of develop, but I do think he's a talented player who has a role if an injury happens. Tyrell Shavers, I mentioned him on a Dynasty Deep Stash. And again, guys, we're not trying to give you guys that are rostered in majority of leagues. We're going deep into the bag here of these kind of deep stashes, deep waiver wire stuff. And Tyrell Shavers, wide receiver for the Bills, made the 53-man roster, is playing for the Bills, is out there. He played at San Diego State. He had some injury issues and things like that. But he's been in the league a couple years, but really didn't do anything. I don't even know if he made an active roster until this year. He hasn't done anything yet, but this is a wide receiver room that's a little bit open. He's out there playing a little bit. He's kind of taking a little bit of like that Mac Hollins role that he had for this team last year. And Mac Hollins, especially in like best ball leagues, did provide some value here. Konata Mumfield for your Los Angeles Rams. Mumfield, a little bit of a preseason darling, got some hype in the preseason, and that's going to happen with teams like the Rams because they're known for finding talent, Puka Nakua and stuff like that. Jordan Whittington, 7th-round pick, hasn't done anything. He's going to need an injury to get on the field. I mean, he's behind obviously Puka, Devontae Adams, Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell. So he's going to need an injury to one of those guys to really see any type of playing time. But still a guy that I like as a long-term stash because, Devontae Adams, you assume is kind of a year-to-year guy. Jordan Whittington still needs to prove it. So go out in there and stash Konata Mumfield if you have room for him. Mac Hollins, speak of the devil. Mac Hollins is a professional wide receiver, ladies and gentlemen, and it's frustrating because he takes snaps away from people, right? Because what he does is very valuable. He's a big X wide receiver that can play on the outside, make contested catches, stretch the field, block in the run game. Which is why he kind of plays a lot. Even though he doesn't put up the numbers, and people are like, "Why is this guy playing?" Well, he got a touchdown this last week. He's playing roughly 60% of the offensive snaps for the Patriots. So in best ball leagues and things like that, this guy's going to catch a touchdown every now and then. He's going to have 4 or 5 touchdowns. He might have a multi-touchdown game. Who knows? He might have a big game that kind of wins you the week. So, a guy that's playing that much, that it's going to happen every now and then. Lineup leagues is a little bit different. But for best ball leagues, I think Mac Hollins is definitely a must add, as is the next guy in Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace, who also, I believe, caught a touchdown this last week for the Baltimore Ravens. Tylan Wallace, he plays a decent amount. He's out there so far to start the season, about 40% of the snaps. He played 50% this last week. Maybe that was a little bit more because it was a bit of a blowout and things like that. But this is a guy who's going to go out there and play. Obviously, he's behind Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, but Devontae Walker is another guy. Tylan Wallace. These guys need to be rostered in best ball leagues because they're getting out there and they're scoring touchdowns every now and then. We saw a big week from Tylan Wallace last year, which could have won you your league if you hit on a player like a Tylan Wallace. Jordan Watkins. Some people that support our channel are big Jordan Watkins fans. Shout out in particular, Down with Fun. Thought he was going to make his debut this last week, but that didn't happen. Hopefully we get to see his debut coming up soon. I mean, obviously the 49ers just continue to get injured and injured and injured. It's a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. Like it's like some kind of curse that they have or something. But you kind of look at their depth chart right now. Obviously, you have Ayuk, who's not back. Jennings is going to be beat up all year. Ricky Pearsall, Kendrick Bourne, MVS, Sky Moore. So maybe Watkins gets on the field and can prove something. Demarcus Robinson still suspended. Jacob Cowing on IR. So hopefully Jordan Watkins gets, and we get to see his debut relatively soon. We'll finish out with just the tight ends here. AJ Barner, I feel like he's rostered, but I also feel like there's a chance he might not be rostered just because no one really talks about him. But this is your starting tight end for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, has that translated to much? Not really. I mean, he had 2 for 26 and a touchdown this last week. And so that was pretty good. But he's out there and he's playing. He is playing 84.6 and 89.2% of the snaps. For tight ends, that's kind of half the battle, just going out there and playing. So he's definitely a guy, like if he for some reason is on the waiver wire, absolutely needs to be picked up. Elijah Higgins is another player as kind of like a handcuff to Trey McBride. If something happens to Trey McBride, I don't think it's going to be Tip Ryman. I think he's more of like a blocking guy, in my opinion. Elijah Higgins, and by the way, he's a little bit beat up. Elijah Higgins, he plays a decent amount, about 30-40% of the snaps each and every week. And if something happens to Trey McBride, Elijah Higgins, who I think is a talented pass catcher, played at Stanford in college, had some good receiving years at Stanford. His last year at Stanford in 2022, put up 60 catches, 700 yards. This is a receiving tight end. If something happens to Trey McBride, I think Elijah Higgins sees a big, huge bump in usage. And injuries happen, and we don't hope Elijah Higgins gets hurt, but it could. The last one here, I'm going to butcher the name, but Moliki Matavao. This is a rookie tight end for your New Orleans Saints. Now, obviously, Juwan Johnson's just absolutely dominating the the snap count, and he's playing like 100% of the snaps, which is great to see for Juwan Johnson. But here's another player out of UCLA. He was drafted in the 7th round, 6'6", 260 tight end. Also had a pretty good receiving season. I think he had 600 yards his last year in college. Foster Moreau is on the IR. Taysom Hill on the IR. Maybe they try to get Moliki a little bit involved, especially if something happens to Juwan Johnson. So appreciate everyone. That's all I have for you today. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.